Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea on American Scouser. And Monday, Grumpy is here. I'm here, barely awake. I have to admit. Actually, the problem is I've probably been sleeping way too much over the last 2 or 3 days. Like I normally do the 6 hour thing max, and it's been a lot of 8 hours, which is the body is in full shock over here. Started working out or whatever though to lose this gut of mine. So that's probably part of the ordeal where the body is in full shock. So sleeping in return. But the prince is here. What's happening?
Not much. I mean, you need sleep to recover, man. So it makes sense that your body is telling you to just stay here for a little bit longer, right? No need to shoot up out of bed so quick. We might start pushing back the morning shows to 9:15. People,
Yeah, I
just
mean, it is what it is. The body has its own mind. No, I mean, the problem is when I do sleep too long, I feel like I'm wasting precious time, if you will. And normally, like, my body would normally wake me up. So it's like, uh, I don't even need the alarm. Like, Angie was like, make sure you have the alarm for tomorrow because, like, it's been like sleeping in late to like 9:30 all weekend and stuff. And I was like, yeah, probably. Lifting food to your mouth is not, no, that is not working. I tried that. Everybody said, you got to lift, you got to lift. And I did a lot of lifting. It's just not working. Just not working.
these two are my strongest fingers because that's what holds the fork and the spoon, man. That's
Dude,
all I
you're in
know.
like perfect shape and stuff like that. Wait for another 5 to 10, and then you will be there. Once you become king, you go down the drain. Tony is in the house. Cersei is in the house. As people gather around, the moment you join, you know the drill. Hit the thumbs up, and then let's get some like bodies in here as we talk. There's a lot to talk about. Which is kind of like interesting because it didn't look like it at one point over the weekend. I was like, it's going to be a lot more like rumors and clouds. But the whole Ekitike thing, he's supposed to be. I just saw an update from Romano that he is getting his medical today, so it should be official either later today or probably latest would be tomorrow with all the videos and cameras and all that kind of stuff. First off, what do you make of that?
So I think I don't remember if it was Ornstein or Joyce. They said that he's flying in today, and the medical will be tomorrow. So he's
Oh,
flying
okay.
in. He's flying into Merseyside today. So he might join the tour as early as the end of this week. Maybe we'll see. But where do I stand on Hugo Ekitike?
Google.
Hugo,
Call him Hugo, or are we gonna call him Ekitike?
Hugo I like Ekitike. Like it sounds fun coming off the tongue. Okay, so I think I've expressed some concerns on our Discord. For anyone who hasn't joined yet, you might as well. I think the big concern for me, and I understand, and I agree with you completely when you respond to those concerns with anyone besides Isak, most likely would have been a project.
Yes.
So that is where most of my worry stands is that he's a 23-year-old who is still a bit raw, and the price tag for him is quite expensive. It's higher than Darwin's price tag. And I think maybe part of it is if we didn't have this Darwin experiment, this Darwin experience, I should say, not experiment, this experience, I think I could be a lot more excited. But I feel like this is the first transfer where, when we take into account with money, that I feel a bit not as optimistic about because I really want him to do well. Obviously, I want him to be the best striker the Premier League's ever seen. Anytime we have a player come in, we want the best for them. But I have some reservations because of the profile, because of the money. But if the data nerds love him, and if Edwards loves him, there's got to be something there. It's just I wonder at what point are we going to say that we returned on our investment on that kind of price for that kind of player.
I get that, and I think that's like the biggest thing I've seen. But honestly, I blame Nunez for that as well. Another thing to blame Nunez for. I feel like if it wasn't for the Nunez ordeal, we wouldn't have the fans would not be as cautious and I don't want to say pessimistic because that's probably too harsh. There's a lot of like, well, let's wait and see going on because I think we've all seen what happened with the Nunez ordeal, which is fair because if you think about it, like we didn't really have a lot of that with Saboslai. I mean, he was like really up there with money. All these other players, there was a lot of excitement for the guy to come in. I do see online and in all these like groups I'm in and stuff like that where it's a lot more of a, well, let's see, hope he's not another Nunez and stuff like that. But I think aside from Isak and maybe Alvarez, those are the only two players I could think of. Like I was like, who? Like, give me if they said, okay, we want you to feel safe, Ted, and said, pick a striker. I think those are the only two strikers that I can think of. Probably maybe we have seen them in the Premier League that I would like. Okay, they will do well. They will work. But I'll be honest. I mean, I don't know where you're at, but if we went out and signed for Isak for 150, as excited as I would be about the prospect of having like Isak and Mo and all that, I would be worried about the injury. Then I'd be like, I hope we didn't put all our eggs in one basket with the 150 on his injury history.
Yeah, and that's where I was at too. There was that fine balance between how much is it worth it for Isak when we know that he struggles with his fitness, and spending that much money on a player that can't guarantee you a full season is a big risk to take. So I think when we look at it from that perspective of how much you're going to get returned as far as how available this player can be, we've always said it, right? Availability is the best trait to have out of any player, right? You could score every time you're on the pitch, but if you're only on the pitch once a month because you're hurt every other game, every other week, you're not as valuable as someone who can be there week in, week out. So I think if Ekitike is able to stay fit, and I mean, I don't think we're also looking for him to break down the doors and have an Erling Holland type first season, right? I think we'd be more than happy if he hits double digits in goals in the Premier League in the first season. I think that'll be a win for everyone.
Really? Okay.
And I don't think it's. Do you not think so?
No, I mean, I understand what you mean. There's no like a huge pressure on him, and that's mainly due to the presence of Mo and probably his, the goals that he already gets. And Gakpo had a bunch of goals last season too. So I do understand that he does not have as much pressure to come in and do 20. But do we think I thought like the low bar you set was almost like too low. Like I feel like, if you got only 10 goals from him in the season, it would be knowing the team, knowing like you have like Verse over there now, you have Mo, you have Gakpo, so you know the situations he's going to be in. To me, if he only has 10 goals, that probably means he's not very clinical at the same time. His need for the goals are not there. I just feel like if he only got 10 goals in the season for this team being the regular center forward starter, he must be missing a lot for him to only have 10 goals is what I would guess.
I think I think that's fair. Yeah, when you say it like that, I think that's fair. I think part of it in what I'm looking at and what I'm thinking about is I guess it's in context with where the other goals are coming from. Because if you have a bevy of goals from Mo and Cody, and then you have a bevy of goals from Veers, there might not need to be the need to have that 15. Because I don't know what I guess my question then is, what number do you have in your head that seems like it would have it is the target? Is it 15 or is it 20? Because 20
You probably
seems
want him to
20
be like
seems
15.
super
Yeah.
optimistic.
Yeah, 20 is a pretty steep, like especially in his first season and stuff. And knowing Mo is there, so more than likely he's not going to be the penalty taker and stuff like that either. I mean, that is a huge, like, probably adds at least like 5 to 10 to your total, I would think. So I think 15 would be like a good number. 15 to 20 would be a really good first season for him in the Premier League, knowing it's a new league. But like I say, he is surrounded by so much talent. He had Marmouche over there, who looks great in those clips, by the way, which is kind of scary. But afterwards, he kind of like takes over and he's the man after Marmouche leaves, obviously, in January. So he will not have that pressure. He will not have that responsibility over here. We just need what I really like from him, really, is, and if you, I know he's not that kind of player, at the end of the day, like Bobby, like, right? Where we didn't look at Bobby's goals and how many he scored and stuff like that. I couldn't even rattle him off the top of my head how many goals a season Bobby had. But in terms of like creating for others, some of the interplay he does and stuff, there's a couple of, I mean, even yesterday's game that we'll get to with like Stoke, you see that pass from like Wirtz to Saboslai right before the first Nunez goal. More than likely, the player that's going to be making that run is going to be Ekitike and stuff. So like he's going to be fed a lot of those balls to be able to finish. I think he would get 15 or more, and he to be like a solid season. I think you would want him having at least 15.
I think that's fair. I think with the playmakers that you have now with Mo and Wirtz, especially if the ball lands in the box on his head or on his feet within 9, 10, 11, 12 yards, you're going to hope that that's going to hit the back of the net most of the time. And if
Yeah,
we think back and painfully watch some of those highlight reels of Mo passing to Nunez and Nunez missing those opportunities right in front of the goal, if those are converted instead by Ekitike, then yeah, he's definitely at that 15 to 20 mark, and you feel much better about it. And I think something else too, not so offensively, his pressing, which is a big thing for you, is considered to be some of the best pressing in any league by any forward. So that's a big step too. If you can have someone who can press well and not, like you usually say, just because you're chasing someone down doesn't mean you're pressing well. Right?
yeah.
There's angles you take, there's ways that you do it that make it better or worse. And if his pressing is continues to be as good in the Prem as it was in Bundesliga, then that rate of turnover there, and then to move forward, I think is going to be huge for the team.
Yeah, I was like listening to watching a bunch of stuff yesterday. Like, dude from the Bundesliga was like talking about him and stuff, and that is one of the things he mentioned. And I love how he said the angles he takes when he is pressing and stuff like that. And I was like, yes, because that's what we want instead of somebody running like crazy but not really pressing, just running. And that's like my biggest thing with Nunez. I mean, here's the thing with Nunez, I'm okay. Honestly, it's not the misses and stuff that really every striker is going to miss. I think when you miss a lot, obviously it sticks out and you don't have the history. Like when Moore misses, we're like, oh, Mo, should I bury that? But we don't like crucify him for like the entire week afterwards. But when you don't have that history, and on top of that, I feel like you're not doing a lot. If you're resume is chaos creator, I don't think that's necessarily like a great thing to have in a resume because you're not gonna chaos is not easy to create every time. And half the time, instead of creating chaos, maybe because of the frustration that he's a guy who's used to scoring goals and he wants to, he's kind of like sometimes in his own head a bit more than normal. I can kind of see him like trying a bit too hard and then falling offside and stuff like that, and how he contributes to the play, the interplay he has. I think those are the things. But let me ask you this, because this is what I was thinking yesterday, especially if you do, if Diaz is going to be gone, which is looking more and more likely, Bayern really wants him. And we probably do want the funds from that now to move on to something else. And we probably wouldn't mind it as long as we can get the maximum out of it. I'm not even talking about the hat trick from yesterday or whatever, which probably doesn't hurt for him to have a decent preseason. But does that only help his value when we do sell him to the Saudis or Napoli or whatever? Or do you think there's a world now where he is the backup? But honestly, I would think if he's the backup, it'll be because we're not getting anything more than 40 for him or something like that.
I think his value is fixed right now. I don't think there's anything against Stoke, anything against Preston that would have changed where the evaluation was for any other team watching, because they're not going to be watching preseason going, "Ooh, hat trick." Maybe we do have to spend 5 extra million. That's just not how it's going to work.
True.
So I think his value is fixed. I genuinely I wouldn't mind having him in the squad this year as being sort of the impact sub, because we've seen him do it in the past. The game against Newcastle, the 2 goals in the 9 minutes, right? He's had moments where he's been able to come on and really impact a game. And if that kind of player is available and you're not spending more and you're keeping, I guess, the some sort of consistency across the front line, then I think that only helps because, and you've mentioned it before too, we can't go in with four out of our six front line being brand new. It's going to be very hard to be able to transition into that new next generation, if you will, like the slot 1.0, if you will, and while doing it all in one summer. It's just, I think it's too much. And I think if you need a little bit of consistency, you keep someone like Nunez because he's he's familiar with the team, he's familiar with the manager for the most part at this point, and he's proven that he can give you moments. You just can't necessarily trust him for a full match, if you will.
It's fair, and I think that goes to that. So we'll talk about that. This is where the conversation is going to bring us. The reason I'm like, Nunez might end up staying is we'll get to that. Napoli aren't buying Nunez. I don't think they were seriously in it. The problem with the Napoli ordeal, I think, is they did sell Osimhen to Galatasaray. I don't think it's like official yet, but it's almost there. But the catch is they're paying it in basically 2 years. So they're doing a 40 and then a 35, from what I understand. So it's not like here you go, 75. Because I've been saying, Galatasaray can afford that. Like literally, it's going to take them 2 summers to buy one guy at this rate because they're going to get 40 and then they're going to do 35 next season. So they're not getting a sudden influx of 75. There's that, and that's what they were trying to get. I think if they did, they would go in for Nunez. I don't know if they're going to go in for Nunez now because it's going to be a negative transfer. They're going to spend, they're only going to get 40, and if they spend like 45, 50, 55, whatever, it's going to be a negative transfer for them. I think if they got the 75 in, you can still go get the Nunez for 45, 50 and say, okay, we got plus 20 from our striker situation, kind of a deal. So I don't think it's going to happen. It really depends on like the whole Saudi thing, and really depends a lot probably on Nunez. He probably would not. I mean, he is young, and I don't know if he's ready to say, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll take the money and go to Saudi." He might say, "No, I'm gonna stay and battle." And to me, being Ekitike versus Isak, if I'm Nunez, like people were like, I think you posted it too, like that he took it personally when we signed Ekitike and he gets a hat trick against Stoke or whatever. In some ways, if I am Nunez, if Ekitike is coming in, I'm saying I can take this dude on because he's my age. He has, like, I have more experience in the Premier League. I can like dethrone him. If Isak comes in, I'm like, okay, I'm a bench warmer. Like I'm not going to get over Isak unless he's hurt. So in some ways, I think it would give Nunez a lot more hope in getting playing time and being the regular center forward, knowing like he's competing against Ekitike and not Isak.
I can see that to a certain extent. The one thing that I'd say against that is that he had to do that all of last year to compete and didn't really crack it, right? So I think that's the
Well, I'm
only
not saying he
drawback.
would. I'm saying in his
Oh,
mind he might think.
but wouldn't you think that in his mind he was doing that last year, or not so much?
Not as much last year, you're saying?
So I'm asking what you're saying is that he didn't do it as much last year in his mind, that he didn't have that in his mind
No,
compared
no, no,
to what
no.
he would have
I'm
in his
sure
mind.
he did. I mean, really, the spot was wide open. When a left winger is playing in your position and he's starting, I'm sure that's like, what the hell is going on around here? But if you went into this off season saying, I'm going to do this, 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 and I'm going to be, the starting center forward of Liverpool, what I wanted to be when I came here 2 years ago, whatever, I think it's a lot more likely for you to say, that's right, let's go, if you see Ekitike as your target to beat. I mean, similar, and maybe that was the problem. He only saw like Jota as his target to beat last year, which Jota had beat him to the spots before he got injured and stuff like that. So I think it would give him more hope if the situation is, am I just gonna, guaranteed bench warmer at Liverpool or go to Saudi and get money and starts and then I'll come back to Europe kind of a thing. I think it was a lot easier decision than staying. I have a chance to start over here, so that money is sweet and everything, but that money is always there for me. I'm gonna try to fight for the spot. It would kind of like be a bit more of a decision making factor for me if I'm Nunez, that I am not a guaranteed bench warmer. But we don't know what the personal conversations they had, obviously, with Slot. Maybe Slot is like, man, you're not really in the plans or anything like that. So Kevin is in the house. What's going on? Good morning. As always, if you're watching, hit that thumbs up. Do you make your coffee old school? No, man. Dude, if I drank freaking old school Turkish coffee in this big ass mug, it, it would be, yeah, it would be quite deadly. First of all, I would probably get up to go to the bathroom middle of the show, so that's not a good thing. But yeah, no, that stuff is like way too strong for that. I do occasionally make it. I'm the only coffee drinker in the house. Not that Jasmine's, like has her own place and everything. So there's no pots of coffee being made. It's like an espresso, and then I will make Turkish coffee occasionally in the evenings and stuff like that. Mind you, I can just drink that thing and go to bed, but I would not have like a whole freaking mug of it. Dara says Nunez doesn't have a decision to make. LFC do. So that brings me to this: has that decision been made for? Let's start with Chiesa, because I think the Chiesa decision, maybe we're wrong. We're saying like they wouldn't change so many numbers. They wouldn't change 4 out of the 6 or 5 out of the 6 or whatever, right? It would be 4 out of the 6, I guess. Gakpo and Mo being constants. But Chiesa not being in the traveling squads to the tournament really irks me. I heard like there were two different rumors. One of them was, obviously the initial rumor was, oh, because he's leaving and stuff like that. The second one was fitness, because he was in the Stoke game and even scored a tap in, but he scored a tap in. I saw a shot. There weren't a lot of highlights from that game. That's why I never understand. There's a lot of talk about the highlights of the game. Like people are taking, I just saw some posts saying like, oh, this is why we're not going to miss Trent. Well, we have Frimpong. And I was like, dude, like you saw him run twice in the highlights. That's the only thing. I mean, yeah, he's fast as hell, but that's all you saw from highlight. Anywho, but my thing is, even if it is fitness for Chiesa, isn't that ultimately the same shit? Because this is the same guy that couldn't play last year because of fitness. If he already has a fitness issue that he can't travel with the squad, doesn't that mean the same thing as him? Oh, he's being sold. That's why he's not going.
Maybe he really just needs to hang back for a couple days because he did take a knock that is severe enough to limit his movement for a couple days, and then he'll join with the team in a week or so. I'm hoping that we get news that he does fly out to meet the team. I don't know how many players necessarily are able to be taken to this preseason tour, because I know they took, I think 29 was the number that went. And I know that there were some exclusions that were interesting, like Kumas and McConnell. I know Danns is hurt. Bicetic, I don't think we're ever going to see him again. Um, the surgery that he had off the back of the injury that he had 2 years ago, I think that's kind of a nail in the coffin for his, at least his development at Liverpool. Because it's hard to bounce back from those kinds of injuries, unfortunately,
Yeah.
as much as we'd love to have him around. And yeah, when I saw the news of the team traveling, I didn't see Case's name. I was just really sad for him. I don't know what it is about Chiesa specifically, that maybe it's the
Oh, poor
song, maybe
Jason.
maybe it's the goofiness at times, but I just felt so bad to not see his name, and it felt kind of almost cruel. Like, did you really couldn't take him? So I'm hoping that it is just a serious enough knock that he joins the team. But it's upsetting, and I think maybe we are wrong. Maybe they do replace 4 out of the 6. Maybe Slot is comfortable with that. That's what it depends on, right? If the manager, if the coach, excuse me, is okay with 4 new pieces up front, then you get him 4 new pieces up front, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the hell we say. If he goes, yeah, that's fine, then do it.
Here's my thing with that. I think, when you're saying, okay, when you're changing 4 pieces and one of them is Chiesa, I don't think it's like a huge ordeal, because like he's never there anyway. So he could be considering, I'm not changing 4 out of 6, I'm changing 3 out of 5, because he was never really there as a right. He was for us. We were like, how come he's not going in? How come he's not getting a minute and stuff? And I all goes back to end of last season for me. There were way too many games where he could have gone out there and he did not. Like and if it was, I mean, it can't be a fitness issue. I keep saying this over and over again. Like he would get me in shape. by freaking April, March, probably, if I joined the team that early and had that much time. I mean, it's not like he came in January or something like that. He was towards the end of the window, but he was in the transfer window. So he had the entire fall, winter. So you would think he would have gotten some minutes. The fact that he didn't feels like he's not in the blessings or in the plans. But I go back to with the players you signed, Frimpong and Kerkez, in terms of their style. And then you have Wirtz and stuff like that. Those plans might have changed. So we didn't know if he's going to fit in there now. But I just don't see him fitting in. And this, him not going there, I mean, like, I just put some of the like the youngsters. It's not like there weren't seats left on the plane or anything like that. It's more about they felt his treatments would be a lot better. Like he would be a lot better, like getting treatments back. But I'm saying, like, if he's not able to even go there, um, I just don't think it's a good idea for him to be here long term. If he's gonna go like one game out 2 weeks, what's the point of having a guy where you can? I think somebody in the comments was saying, um, if he is going to be there long term, why even occupy a squad spot for him? You're not really changing anything. You can get a youngster that you put on there, and it will be ultimately the same thing. I know last week I was saying, hey, I would rather have Chiesa warming up over Rio warming up if it's the 70th minute and we need a goal and stuff. But if you can go get somebody else who is, I know, I'm sure the scouting department has wingers. They have their eyes set on. If you get somebody like that who you think might be a project, might not be ready, but in the long term it's going to be a better. I mean, why not? Why not? So, Jared is in the house. He went to Jared's. Dude,
And
it can't be a bad idea. Or it could be a really bad idea because Dara is here too. So there's that. But Lee's here as well. Good morning. And Tony says it's the best place for a rat. Damn right. So what is your gut feeling? I know we want him to succeed, but we want anyone wearing a red to succeed. What is your gut feeling with Chiesa and how it ends up?
last week I was saying that he's going to end up being sort of the second striker choice behind whoever comes in as depth. With the news of him not going to Japan, I don't think he's part of the plan. I think he's going to be sold. Part of the problem as well is that he is the sixth highest earner on this team when it comes to weekly wages. And I understand that it's not our money. And I hear it all the time. You know, they're going to spend however they're going to spend their money. But when you have a guy like Chiesa, who you pay that much money for, and you have 20 other guys on the team who are able to play week in, week out, who are actually being chosen to play. Maybe not 20, then the number gets a bit lower, but you have guys that the coach trusts more. It's really hard to justify that amount that you're spending every week. And I know part of it, the transfer fee was a bit low beginning. You know, when we brought him in last year, we were saying, hey, this guy was valued at 100 million a couple of years ago, right before he did his ACL, and he was really high on everyone's list. Now it's sort of a low risk, high reward situation. But when you also are factoring in that he's making 200K a week roughly, I mean, that's a lot that you have to invest into someone that isn't being trusted nor isn't getting any playing time. So I think at this point you try and get as much money back as you can. And like you said, bring in someone, not that he's old, but bring in someone a bit younger that can cover those positions as well. Hell, maybe Rio is ready. We don't know. Maybe he
Yeah.
is. I don't know. It could be something where he is the sixth, seventh option potentially, and he is a lot cheaper, right? So that could just be the planets as well.
I mean, if you think about it, you put those wages and you do like the math, you can go get a guy for 2025. Because if you even sell him for like 10, 15 million and you have his like 10 million wages, if you bring a guy in with lower wages for like 2025, you're evening out and you're getting a guy that you have more realistic chance of playing if you're not considering him playing over here. We have converted Jared, by the way. The chats has convinced them. So yeah, man, they got you bad. They got you bad. Welcome aboard, sir. Welcome aboard. But I'll ask the chat: are we making too much of him not going to Japan? And I think like Dara and Mr. Bat were already selling him plane or not. They were putting him on a different plane to Italy and stuff like that. But are we making too much of that? To me, it was like when a player issue was fitness all season last season, and that's why he was explained as not playing. And then 2 weeks into preseason, he has a fitness issue again. That basically tells me, okay, this is not working out. Like this whole thing is not working out now. So, and I don't even understand how he cannot. And she was like, "How is he having fitness issues?" I was like, I have no idea. Like, it's been here. It's not even like, oh, the Premier League is really hard for him or something like that, like too physical or anything. He's not getting like in-game injuries, knocks, or anything like that. So it's that's like my biggest thing. I just don't know why it's happening, and I just don't think it's going to work out in the long run. The problem is, when something like this happens, obviously his value goes down a little bit, and that's what I worry about because the market for him, I'm assuming, is just Italy, right? I mean, no Bundesliga team is saying, let's go get Chiesa over here.
Yeah, yeah, and that's if he wants to play in the World Cup because this could be his last chance to play the World Cup with his age. Then his best shot is going to be going back to Italy. Obviously, he can play elsewhere and he can be the manager can look at him elsewhere, but that is kind of where he played his best football. That is where he was shining. That is where he probably feels most comfortable. And if that's what it takes to get him back to that point, then he's not going to want to stick around because at the end of the day, the players will only want to be around for as much as they think that they're valued for. And if he feels like his value isn't being appreciated or respected in his terms, then he's going to want to go somewhere he feels like his value is being it was reciprocated, right? So
Yeah.
I think Italy would be the destination. Selfishly, maybe hoping he ends up at Napoli because I'm going to go see Napoli play in September. So because the wife and I are going to Italy, so if I'll see Kevin De Bruyne,
Oh, that's
better
right.
best midfielder in the Prem above Steven Gerrard. Uh, gonna open up that can of worms. No, but yeah, I think Italy would be it would be a good move for him, just maybe emotionally and physically.
Be careful in those games, man. As an American going over there, I mean, I can already forewarn you about going to the soccer games. It's definitely not going to the Chicago Fire game over here. Don't be stupid and wear a different jersey or something like
Oh
that and get
no,
your butt beats. Yeah, okay. Let's be careful out there.
I'm
I
not.
think
Look, I'm not American, Timothy. Come
that's
on,
true.
you know
That's
this.
true. That's true. You're like, but again, once again, in a reel, just this morning, I was called a Yank. So there's that. I don't understand how this is happening, but it is happening. And it's literally, sometimes when the clips are edited, you can't see the name underneath. This one, you literally could see the name too, and it said the Turkish one, and somebody said this Yank doesn't know what he's talking about. So, what are you gonna do? I mean, I'm not gonna argue that I don't know what I'm talking about, but the Yank part, I'm going to disagree with. But so this is, I think he seems like a nice guy and really happy about joining us. I mean, I mean, and I do get that, and I think that's fair because I think he is very you can kind of tell he is like fit in with the team, like the way he communicates with the team and stuff like that. But let's be honest. I mean, I would be really happy to be there and get along everybody great. But you don't want me as a striker option on your team either. Mr. Bader says we helped Chiesa get better. And he got winner's medal in the process. He got a decent wage. Now it's time to reallocate the wages. And I think it goes back to what you're saying. I think the wages being that high, I think this decision would be a lot easier if he was getting Diaz money, which let's come to that. Do you think I said he's probably as good as gone at this point, but do you think there's a world where we just play hardball with Bayern backs out, and he ends up staying? And would that be a bad thing after his? I mean, there's a lot of talk about Isak's head being turned. Would that be the same thing happening to Diaz in terms of more like the wages turning his head in this case than the club? But
I don't think so. I think Diaz strikes me as a player who loves the sport enough where when he's on the pitch and he's going to play because he plays the exact same whether it's for Liverpool or whether it's for Colombia. Like he is
true.
just having the time of his life playing the sport that he loves. So I think for me, if he ends up staying and there isn't an agreement made, I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where he's going to make a big fuss, and kind of create a cancer in the locker room situation. I don't think he's that kind of person. And then his contract will run out and then he'll go wherever he'll go at that point. But I do think there's going to be a deal made with Bayern in the next week or so. I can't imagine. I think the only thing is having him fly out to Japan and potentially having him fly right back to Europe in the next couple of days is maybe. I know Dara said earlier in the comments to not feel bad for millionaires, but they are still people, right? And you still want to
Yeah.
humanize them, and especially with the whole Jota situation, like we have to remember that they are human beings. So it seems like a little much to fly him halfway across the world to fly him back after a couple of days. But then again, they fly out internationally to South America to play friendly sometimes just to come back to Europe in a couple of days to play during the season. So I think the deal will be made within the next couple of days, and we'll have another left winger that leaves to go to Bayern, and we probably will end up seeing him in Saudi Arabia in a few years after that.
Yeah, I mean, I get Dara's like notion in terms of like I'm not going to sit down over here and be like, oh, poor Chiesa, what is he going to do? Or poor Diaz, what is he going to do? How is he going to survive or anything like that? I mean, yeah, no, with the money involved, but it's part of the ordeal. Like, regardless, all of these guys are getting a lot of money, and that's the thing. Like when we were talking about Diaz, a lot of the comments were like, well, you should have negotiated a better thing. You only, oh, poor him, he's only getting 50,000, blah blah blah. That's not, I understand that, but that's not really the point. All of these guys, at the end of the day, all of these guys are getting a lot of money for playing a game that we probably all played a lot as well. They just do it at a different level, so they get paid more. But at the same time, I'm not going to feel as bad for too long knowing how much they're getting paid. And this is part of the business. Not every player is going to be a Liverpool player. It takes a lot to be able to be a regular at the Liverpool Football Club. And that's what makes the club special. That's what makes the team so good. And especially now when the team is so good. So I think that is like the biggest thing for me, more than the money they get. It's just like you have to have a certain quality and be above a certain level consistently to be able to be a Liverpool Football Club player. And if you're not there, I mean, it is what it is. It's not like, we're saying like you can't play soccer anymore, you're done kind of a deal. No, he's just going to get his opportunity, make his wages. And, I wish the best for him because he does seem like a good guy. He's not one of those guys that you're like, when he goes, I don't think anybody is going to say good riddance. I think we're all going to say, damn, man, I wish that worked. And I think there's a huge difference how you react when a player leaves. We had a couple of like good riddances, but not recently, actually. That's probably the good news. And that's what I really like about the current team. There's a lot of like likable people in there. So, Case has an off an injury record and always has done. Yeah, I thought, like we said that when we first signed him, right? And he had that year afterwards where he was fine. So when he came to us, he did look, like he's good to go. He's healthy, but obviously that was part of the deal where like the pricing was right. Mr. Betts says difference here is he wants to move out, so he'll be fine. He can take the jet back that brings. And this is a good point by Jared too. I mean, that's a lot of these preseason games and stuff. Like when I see Nunez get a hat trick yesterday, my mind goes both ways. Is it like, oh, he's kind of earning a spot for himself, or he's earning a step in the for himself in the market kind of thing? I mean, we talked about it earlier, but if you look at last preseason, you know, and that's maybe partially because slot was new and we didn't know what to expect style wise and stuff. I feel like similar this summer too, due to signings, but last year it was his first season. I mean, if you look at preseason, you'd be like, oh, he's gonna make Sepp a regular starter. He's gonna play Carvalho on the left, I think, and stuff. So if you took those to heart and thought every preseason game really meant something in the long run, you'd be in for a shocker after a month when we sold all those guys.
And part of it too, last preseason, there were a bunch of first team players who were not available because of international tournaments. So there were only so many players to choose from during those games. But yeah, if like you're saying, watching preseason last year, Set would be the guy be after Kanate, right? Maybe in some ways ahead of Kanate, like Kwanzaa was for the first half of last year against Ipswich. and then Carvalho would be the left wing replacement, or he would be like the Soboslai role, right? So that's what we were watching all the time. But yeah, that's why preseason there's not too much stock that you put into it. It's one thing. It's a fun way to see players. It's a fun way to see new players potentially, right? Saw some of the photos from yesterday's match and still seeing Wirtz in a Liverpool jersey seems unreal to me. It doesn't seem like it's actually happened yet. So until I can actually see it live Sunday, I don't think it's really done. But but
And
that's all
him like
preseason is.
getting away from that dude in the first goal, I was like, yes, yes, because the
I
biggest
mean,
fear was him. I don't
it
know.
is
I'm so
it is
excited.
against Stoke, but Messi never did it against Stoke. So
There you go on a cold day in Stoke. But I mean, here's the thing. I felt like the Stoke thing, especially in the first half and stuff, kind of like meant more to me because they're going to be even more physical in some ways because of like the level. So it was nice to see, and that's probably the biggest concern with Wirtz coming in is like the physicality to the Premier League. So seeing him kind of rip off of that dude and make that pass, I was like, yes, I can't wait for more over here. The game is on YouTube now, says we are gonna do a live watch along, by the way. Next Wednesday morning, gonna do a live watch along. So if you're up, well, most of the audience over here right now is actually on the other side of the pond. So they'll definitely be up. But if you're on this side over here, if you're gonna get up at 5:30, 3:30, 6:30, whatever the hell you're at, I will be hosting that one if the alarm works. Dara says I wore my LFC shirts at the home and in many LFC games. See, I'm afraid, our Polish prince over here is gonna walk into the Napoli stand wearing like a freaking Juventus jersey or something like that, get his butt kicked. Because if you go to the Fenerbahce game and you're wearing an away jersey in the middle of the stadium over there, you might not have a great old time. Especially if the game, you might be mocked if you're getting your butt beat or whatever, and you get away with it. But especially if your team is winning or something like that, it is not going to work out very well for you over here. Jared says we need to capitalize while players are desperate to come to us and build an elite team that plays back on the. We are back on the perch, but yeah, I understand what he's saying. I think somebody was mentioning earlier, maybe it was Jared actually, like in terms of the aisle we're shopping in for players. It almost has changed. Let's not get used to this, by the way. I don't see this club and Edwards spending like 300 million every freaking summer moving forward or anything. So don't get too used to it. But I think that is a good point that when we talk about players like Nunez and Chiesa and stuff like that, maybe 3, 4 years ago, where it'd be like, he's a good bargain for the value. It does feel like we're shopping in the next aisle over now where the higher end products are. So if you're not good enough, you're not good enough.
yeah, I mean, if you're from the Chicagoland area, it's like going from Jewel to Mariano's, right? We're done shopping at Jewel. We're not going back to Jewel. We're
I can
staying
tell
there.
you're a prince where your low ends was Jewel, which is
I
like a
couldn't think of
really
anything
expensive,
else.
overpriced. See, this is how spoiled of a brat this Polish prince is, by the way. Because when he gave that example, if you're not in Chicagoland, you don't know this. But when he said like going from Jewel to Mariano's, Mariano's is like the more like the snobby place, first of all. But Jewel is not like the low end, like a dollar store version of a grocery store, by the way. Jewel is really overpriced. But hey, man, it's good to be a prince. It's good to be a
Look,
prince.
I'm comparing this club to grocery stores. I'm not going to go all the way on the very, very low end because this club is not very, very low end. That's rude for you to even think I thought of that. That's disgusting. Moving on. Um,
You don't have to repeat the spend cycle if you do a proper one once. And that's another good point. I mean, here's the thing. That's what I like about the whole Edwards system and stuff because you're shopping in the aisle. You're not in the clearance section of the expensive place. You're getting young guys that are going to be playing around for a while.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when you think of the core of the next iteration, I mean, we had the core under Klopp that we have three guys left from that, four guys, I guess, if you want to count Robertson. It depends um, on how much we see him being active this year as far as being chosen this year. But you need this next generation. And then you're already setting it up with the midfield with Wirtz, McAllister, Gravenberch, Soboslai. And then you have defensively Frimpong and Kirkes on either side. Van Dijk's got a couple years left, so the big thing is just getting a couple center backs that you feel can be in the squad for the next,
Yep.
that 4, 5, 6 year range. You have Mamardashvili, who's going to be stepping in the shoes of Allison. Hopefully, maybe Allison's going to be still good in 5, 6 years. We don't know. Goalkeepers have a much different kind of prime range
Yeah.
than outfield players do. So then the big focus then becomes on the forwards, on the front line. And if Ekitike pans out, Gakpo is still relatively young, right?
Yes, he is.
Mo is going to play for another 10 years easily. We don't have to worry about that. So when you have all those pieces working together, you have this next generation, this next iteration of this team. You set yourself up for 5, 6 years. And so, like people are saying in the comments, you do it right one summer or 2 summers. You don't have to keep doing it. You don't have to become United. You don't have to become a team that overspends every summer because they can't get it right. You spend a lot one summer, get it all right, you keep moving.
Yeah, I mean, Lee says, by the way, for like the highlights, the 2 minutes, and the problem is, I found a video that was 11 minutes, but the highlights of it were actually still 2 minutes. Like they were just showing the goals, one extra time, and there was a lot of pre-match and post-match, like the field being watered and stuff like that. Stuff that's not really valuable information. And honestly, and like especially with preseason, one thing, for example, out of the highlights, and I don't know how fair it is to kind of come up with this theory off of the highlights, but what I've seen on the few highlights I saw, for example, was how good Neoni looked. But I mean, you only saw a couple of his like ridiculous passes. I don't know if he was caught on the ball and missed it and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to tell unless you watch the whole game. Even when you watch the whole game, unless I kind of like focusing on like one or two players in these preseasons to see what they do on the ball, off the ball. Because unless you're kind of recording it and watching it over and over again, you're not going to be able to tell the off the ball stuff as well over here. Um, yeah, I mean that's one of the main things I was looking at because we didn't see him obviously in the first game, which watching Wirtz and what he says and stuff like that. See, Saido is here to warn us all that fans are being deceived by Nunez' impact against average team. But then again, Martin says Nunez has to stay. He wants to stay, not like Diaz. I mean, see, I don't think that's fair because if Diaz was getting Nunez money, Diaz doesn't mind leaving. If probably Diaz wants to leave and get more wages, he's probably looking at Nunez. It's like, this fucker's making more than me after like what Diaz is contributing compared to Nunez considering. So I don't think that's fair to say on Diaz. Look, I know this is going to go back to they're making millions, they're making a lot of money, but we all work, I assume. Aside from you, you're the prince. But we all have to have like a working class people over here. If you're at a job, okay, regardless of how well you're getting paid, you might be being like well compensated. If you see somebody else who's being compensated twice as much as you, doing half your work, it's still gonna bug you, and you're not gonna like it. You're not gonna say, "Oh, I'm making a bunch," though. You're still gonna say, "How is this guy making more than me? I'm literally doing twice as much as him." So I think there's a big difference there. Like people have to consider that they're at like a whole different level. Their 50,000 is are like regular wages or something like that. Probably like a 50,000 a week and stuff like that. So I like us playing Bradley and Frimpong on the same side. And then yeah, I heard like Saboslai played like a back, right attack in mids, kind of like an inverted role kind of a thing. But I think it's all like a preseason action over here. A lot of Facebook today. Neil says Nunez, Diaz, Elliott, and Morton out. You think Elliott's out because he's a valuable asset that you have that you can convert to a player who's gonna play more minutes or whose slot is gonna trust to play more minutes? Because I find it hard that anybody would be like, gotta get rid of Elliott otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think most of our fans, if they want Elliot, not that they want Elliot out or that are saying that Elliot's out, is more so just for him, for his own sake, for playing time because we feel like he deserves it. He's been great for the club, a great steward of the club, and if he isn't in the plans as much for slot, then also making your money on Elliot does help the team overall too, right? I mean, from a business standpoint, you're going to make money on him, and he's probably one of the most valuable probably the most valuable younger asset now that Kwanzaa's gone, that you can still
Yep.
make a good amount on. So if it really feels like rather than kind of using the academy and using younger, that 19, 20, 21 year range, with slot, I think the big thing is getting in guys who are proven at this level, who are not that young, that are sort of ready to go. Not, I think we've talked about not so much projects anymore. And Elliott may still be a project for him to find a way to have him in the team. And if that is the case, then you make your money on him. Maybe you throw in a buyback clause like you did with Kwanzaa. If you can negotiate something like that, great. But I think given what we saw last year, given kind of the way that Slot wants the team to play, I don't think Elliott, unfortunately for him, his size profile, I don't think suits him well for this team and for what Slot probably wants out of a midfielder, especially maybe a winger, but he's not displacing Salah. So that's where you're like, well, shit, do you wait 2 more years and maybe have that spot open up? But then is Elliott going to want to sit for 2 years possibly in that
Yeah.
situation? And then do you then drop his value even more if you're going to get money on him now? So I think with all those things considered, I think Elliott leaving is probably best for all parties.
The only thing I keep going back to, and this is me like imagining a scenario over here, but we all see Elliott as not fitting based on what we saw last year, how many minutes he got last year, and the system we played last year. Because, like you're saying, it doesn't fit the midfield, it doesn't fit the winger, right? The only thing that I keep coming back to is we're going to see a different world. And I agree with Jared, by the way. Like, he is definitely the marquee signing. I know now Ekitike is going to get all the eyes, but because it's a player we did not have before. Like, it's a profile of a player we did not have before. And if you build a system that takes advantage of a player like that and his style, the the natural guy to sub in for that spot is, if it's not Saboslai, I would think it's probably Elliott. And I don't know if he can find a spot on the team for himself just because of that. I mean, but this is like me trying to make a scenario for him to kind of like stick around, because I do like the kid, and he'll be another one that if we move on from him, and probably in some ways it's probably smart business. You gotta sell while the stock is high, and obviously with the U21 tournaments and stuff like that. But um, and we would like wish like well for him. I think any Liverpool fan would, because he's had some good moments. I think he's, if he was a bit more physically stronger, and you would think just by hanging out with Mo by osmosis you would get stronger. But then again, look at Costas; he hasn't gotten stronger either. Sider says he prefers Elliot. Sider, you would prefer the guy drawing the lines on the practice pitch over Jones. So I don't know if that's a good good source of it. Anybody but Jones for Saidu. So I don't know. I agree with Neil over here where Jones is more versatile than Elliott. Let's talk about this, because I'm glad I am not the only one, and the chat is really big on Gomez, because I do definitely. I am like a huge Joe fan. I mean, a bunch of comments in there about Joe, and that was one of the first. When I watched the first preseason, that was one of the thoughts I had 10 minutes into the game. I was like, man, it's good to have him back, because everybody forgets how great they were at one point with Van Dijk as a center back duo. A lot of talk about Konate, uh, and Real Madrid supposedly asked, but that could be like, I'll give you $50, kind of an ordeal for Konate. I don't know what's going on with that, but um, I'll ask you this: what is the value that you would take for Konate and be like, you know what, let's cut our losses short to Real? Because you know they're going to lowball, because the alternative is zero. It's just basically gaining a season for him. Give me a dollar.
Oh God.
But this is a question you
Oh
can
God.
answer a bit of both too. So
Oh well, a
shuffle.
bit of both. I could give you a range. Let's say 35 to 45. Oh,
Okay, like yeah,
right,
that
right.
seems to
Where
be
do
the
you go?
common theme over here. A lot of 40s. I don't find that realistic. Do you guys think? I mean, like Lee, Neil, do you guys
Well,
find realistic? I mean,
you didn't
okay,
ask
like
realistic. You
realistically,
asked
that's something
what
they would.
I
I
would
mean, I would feel
take.
comfortable with 50, 60, but I know they're not going to give it. Like, what is the low ball number they would give you that you would be okay with? Because I feel like, I mean, hey, I will take 40 in a heartbeat. I just don't think they're giving the 40. It is euros, it says though, Lee. So this is where the millions can vary. I mean,
uh,
not for a prince like you, but for most of us.
Absolute lowest. Yeah, yeah. Absolute lowest 25, 30.
25, 30. So let me. That's a good scenario that Neil is
Like
talking about. I
absolute
don't know that
lowest.
we're playing a little bit too much FIFA in that one, but I can see that, and I will be okay with that. Like, but how much in-store credit you're getting for Konate? That like, if you're not getting cash, how much in-store credit getting? Are you getting like 40, 50 because it's in-store credit instead of cash, or how is that working? Because yeah, if it is a Konate and plus 40 or something like that, plus 50 for Rodrigo, I think that's a pretty decent deal as long as you have another, center back in mind. I guess my question is, and I want the chat to kind of respond to this too, because we were talking about it on the Discord channel yesterday. Is there a price that's too low, like a 30? Let's say 30, right? Is that too low to risk your Premier League season, Champions League season on? Aren't you better off going with, especially if you get Gay, going with top four center backs into a season and playing it safe, win things? Nothing is guaranteed, but a lot more likely to win things if you have Konate there as opposed to like a young kid you get to replace Konate, right? And just get nothing at the end as opposed to getting 30 but putting everything at risk.
Yeah, I would agree. I would much rather take the year at that point if it's going to provide that than take the 25-30 because in the long run, 25 to 30 right now in today's market isn't really that much. Doesn't get you a whole lot. And is that valuable enough to possibly derail a good chunk of your time? Now, if Gomez is able to stay fit the whole year, we might turn around and say we didn't miss Konate at all. But that is a big risk that we'd have to take, knowing the fitness issues. But I just keep thinking back to Van Dijk and Gomez back in that 18, 19, 19, 20 years, like right in that area where they were such a good partnership, right?
Yeah.
So if we can achieve 80% of those heights again with those two, we're not going to think about Kanate. We're going to be glad that we got the 25-30. But if we take the 25-30 and can't necessarily get in a center back, or Gahey doesn't pan out, or if Gahey's even coming out, we're talking about Gahey as if he's already part of the team. If he doesn't
Yeah.
come through, or if there isn't another replacement and that derails the season, then yeah, absolutely is not worth 25 to 30.
Because especially with Joe, and I love Joe, but you don't want to put the eggs in his baskets based on his injury history. And with him, it hasn't been muscle injuries. He's been really unlucky with some ridiculous injuries in his career. But we've seen this before, right? Sadly, players sometimes like that, where they do get the ridiculous injury over and over and over again. So you don't want to put your eggs in that basket and say, "Oh, we're gonna have Van Dijk and Gomez there." So if Gay is there, and if you have like somebody else already in mind, like Hato, I know his name gets thrown around a lot. If you're confident that you can go get 25, 30 million, like for the money you're kind of like getting for him, yeah, it's better than zero. But I do agree with realism, Jared. That's why the realism comes in and it's dead on that, keep Kanata, lose him on a free and win. That's where I'm at right now. Unless that like something like that Rodrigo thing happens, or Edwards and crew have like a replacement in mind to be able to like replace him at about the same cost as like you're getting, and this way you kind of like got rid of the risk. Um, yeah, honestly, I wouldn't mind him as a starter, and I'm totally okay with the starter. I just don't. I wouldn't go into a season saying he's going to be a starter the entire season. Like you just can't do that with Gomez. Unfortunately, I really, really love. I mean, I like the well, he's not a kid anymore, God knows, but I mean, he's a kid to me, I guess, at my age. But like the personality he is, like how he carries himself, and on the pitch, the things he does. I mean, when you have a guy who can play right back, play center back, it lets you do a lot of things in that position, like how comfortable. We can't afford to let Konate go on a free. Yeah, and that's the thing. More than letting him go on a free, I mean, if you follow this channel, I just hated that freaking conversation the entire freaking season about the freaking goddamn contracts. I just don't want to go through that again. I don't even care about the free part. I just don't want to go through that again. But I think it's a whole different ordeal, to be honest with you, though. Like when you talk about Konate to Trent, the Trent deal was so much different. I don't think Konate would get as much hate as Trent, because I think the Trent betrayal thing was, I mean, we talked about a lot. I mean, Kevin is here. We went 59 minutes before using Trent's name. So this is a brand new record, breaking
New
records.
record. Almost a full episode.
Almost a full episode. Yeah. Um, yeah. See, that's too pessimistic, man. I do have some hope that, you know why I hope? I think because of Slot, I have hope. I'm like really think, it will help. It keeps Konate healthy, right? I mean, that's the thing that for me, he was able to keep Konate happy. And if we're gonna get anything for Konate, this is the time. And I honestly think Konate is really playing a dangerous game over here. A dude who can never stay healthy, rolling the dice on himself after he had one season where he stayed healthy, apart from that dipshit Andrix tackle, like he was healthy the whole season. So I feel like he's really rolling the dice on himself over here. But maybe if Slot can keep Konate healthy for a full season, he can do the same with Gomez. So let's see how that goes over here. See, Hato name gets thrown around a lot. Leone as back with Gomez. Hmm. Jared, thanks for hopping on, man. And as like he says, please
I mean,
like, subscribe, and share. Go ahead. You were about to say something, Matush. Go ahead.
if the wallet is out, we might as well just go for Bastoni as well at this point, right? Just go for it.
That would be nice. Let's really go spend some money over there. But I mean, we will wrap it. I'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, with the duo that we're gearing up for the 24-hour podathon over here. So we are getting ready. 3 weeks to go. We have a bunch of stuff. George Sefton, actually the voice of Anfield, he is donating like an autograph book, and he just sent a video over the weekend actually. So once we edit that, we'll probably throw that on air as well in terms of like the podathon and stuff. Great dude, and like a great person too. George is the kind of guy that you can probably just sit down and like listen to for hours, and I'm sure he'll have hours and hours of like Liverpool memories too. But big shout out and a big thanks to him. I mean, the voice of Anfield helping our podathon is freaking huge. We've come a long way. We've come a long way with this podathon, so I'm pretty happy about that. It's Monday though, your day off for the Prince every day. But any plans?
Grooming day for me.
Grooming day for
That's
you.
it for me
All
this
right.
time. Yep.
Well, some of us have to work, unfortunately, but I'll be working all freaking day, and then I'll meet you guys today at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. Do tune in then. I know it's the middle of the night, in the other side of the pond, but hey, why the hell not get up for this shit show over here? But thanks a lot for
Or
those joining
stay up.
today. Really, really means a lot. Hit those likes, and as I always say, I mean, I know Jared was talking about like how he was glad it popped up. It doesn't pop up for everyone. So for those who are not popping up for, please go grab them by the ear and drag their butt over here. So give us a follow and subscribe and join the chat. I really enjoy our chats in the morning where it just goes on and on, like people interacting with each other is pretty awesome to see. So thanks a lot as always, and I'll be back tonight. I'll see you guys then. Have an excellent week, everybody. Take care.